created to have some fun together, sharing and singing. So, join and enjoy.
Our love for opera brings us together. Thanks for being with us in this trip.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much for joining for another program in now the series Parlons. Today, I am very happy to be sharing with you one of my favorite operas, and I think you already know it if you have been following the previous episodes of the podcast. You may have heard that I have, in fact, already brought a couple of passages of this opera to the previous series, and when we talk about our favorite ones. So it is, of course, La Forza del Destino, again, Maestro Giuseppe Verdi. And today, same as last week when we talked about Aida, but it was Maria Callas, Maria Menellini Callas, 1951 in Mexico. Now we are referring to La Forza del Destino, but in the voice, one of the most beautiful tenor voices of all times, in the voice of Giuseppe Di Stefano, also known as Pippo, with all the warmth that we can talk about Pippo Di Stefano. I'm going to be giving you a little more details of what Giuseppe Di Stefano means for Mexico. But what I would like to do first, because I haven't done it for the previous programs, is that I want to thank people who have been following the podcast for the past months. And let me start by thanking people in the United States. Thank you very much. Followed by the United Kingdom. Thank you very much as well. We also have people in Canada. Thank you very much. France, of course, La France. Thank you, Germany. Thank you, people in the Russian Federation. Thank you, people in the Netherlands. Now that Brazil has recently joined as well, thank you very much, people in Brazil. Thank you to the people in Sweden. Also, India. India is another country that joined recently. Thank you, people in Malaysia. Thank you, people in Italy. Thank you as far as Japan. Also, as far as Australia. Thank you, people in Spain, people in South Africa, people in Austria, Norway, of course, South Korea, the Philippines, Peru, Turkey, Armenia, Croatia, Indonesia, Argentina, Colombia, Denmark, Thailand, Portugal, Ukraine, and Nigeria. So as you can see, we already have a good number of followers in a very good number of countries. I have to confess that when this series was started, we never thought of having such an impact all over the world, already present in all the continents, Asia, Europe, Africa, North America, and South America. Thank you very much. But now let's get to today's program. La Forza del Destino. To start talking about La Forza del Destino, I am sure you have heard it, if not in the complete opera, you have heard it incidentally because the overture of La Forza del Destino is so famous, is so impactful, so powerful. I have a friend who recently told me that by listening to the overture of La Forza del Destino, he felt the wrath of God and destiny directing the fate of humans. That's what he felt when he heard this amazing overture. And I was telling you that it is also very famous because it's one of the few opera overtures, that orchestras like to sing in concerts. You don't need to watch the complete Forza del Destino, and it is somehow common that directors like to include it in their programs. So powerful it is. It already brings us the motifs that lately are going to be heard throughout the opera. You may already know also that La Forza del Destino is one of the latest works of Giuseppe Verdi. Also, you may already know that there are several versions of it. That is also true. And you may also know that people did not receive it very well. Giuseppe had been evolving his style, in his composition, the plots, the stories he used, and at this point in his career, it was not positively seen the way he was addressing this plot. Also, remember that I am not going to give you the whole detail of the plot of the libretto. We are going to be stopping here and there in a few of the scenes. But before we jump into the details, let me talk a little more about Giuseppe Di Stefano. But well, before talking about Giuseppe Di Stefano, you may have heard that Renata Tebaldi, also one of the greatest sopranos of all time, a spinto soprano, had sung it. It was part of her repertory. She was Leonora in this opera, and she sang it with Giuseppe Di Stefano. Giuseppe Di Stefano, you may already be very aware, Giuseppe had a lyrical tenor voice. To be sincere, it's not the best voice for this opera. This opera has a very heavy orchestration as well, has many passages that are very difficult and tiring for a lyric tenor voice. But and also to be sincere, of course, the voice of Di Stefano is not as strong, as powerful as Carlo del Monaco, who was who liked to sing it very often. Of course, we cannot compare both voices, but also if Di Stefano didn't have the powerful voice of Del Monaco, he had something that Del Monaco never had. And it is that Di Stefano sang and paid attention to not only every sentence, but to every word and to each of the nuances of the role. Di Stefano really studied their roles. He knew how to convey something. So you may have heard, you may have read, you may agree that Di Stefano is not the best voice in terms of power for this opera, but of course he is in terms of the understanding of the conflict that the role he portrays here, which is Don Alvaro, he portrays this role to perfection. Of course, and now that I was referring to Renata Tebaldi, he sang it a couple of times with Renata. Renata had such a powerful voice, of course, in the duets, in the stronger parts. Renata's voice is much stronger than Giuseppe's, but there is something very interesting that I have found in a couple of recordings, or in a good number of recordings with Di Stefano, and it is that Di Stefano's energy, commitment to the role is so strong that makes other, I will say, colder singers, if not competing, understanding that if they did not commit to the role as much as Di Stefano, they would be left behind. So somehow Di Stefano pushes all the other singers to give it all on stage. And this is what we hear in the recordings of Giuseppe Di Stefano in La Forza del Destino, not the stronger Don Alvaro, but by far the most committed singer in portraying this role. What else can we say? Well, that Di Stefano not only sang it once, but a good number of times, and he sang it with Tebaldi, Leyla Gencer, the Turkish soprano, the extraordinary Turkish soprano, Leyla Gencer, and Sinka Milanov as well. So, of course, he had to sing it with prima donnas, of course. He also sang it along, I have to say it at this point, that La Forza del Destino is an opera that has a very important role of the tenor and the baritone as well. You may know at this point also that Verdi loved writing for baritones, and the role he writes here for Don Carlo is so extraordinary for baritones. The duets he composes for the tenor and the baritone are so out of this world. Along with Tebaldi, he sang it in the role of Don Carlo with Leonard Warren. Along with Gencer, he sang it with Aldo Proti. And along with Sinka Milanov, he also sang it with the baritone Welfi. They were the other singers on stage or in the recordings when he had went for this opera. And I really, again, as I did in the previous week, I really invite you to look for a recording and pay attention to how people did everything. Uh, I think it's time that we start talking about the plot, a little about the plot itself. And so, after that magnificent overture, there is a duet between the tenor and the soprano before things go horribly wrong. I will tell you why. But there is this love duet. Once he has arrived to Leonora's house, they have this love duet where they make plans for the future, but they are interrupted by a father. And in a horrible accident, Leonora's father gets shot. So he dies. Having seen that horrible moment happen, the two of them escape. Both Leonora and Don Alvaro escape, flee the scene, having had Leonora's father killed. And I think I should also mention that this is the only love duet when one can actually hear Alvaro sing something in love. Singing something in love, I was telling you that you can find stronger voices, but if you want to listen to a rendition that sounds like an actual Don Alvaro that is in love, you have to listen to the Stefanos. And on the second act, we learn in the voice of Don Carlo, that is a baritone, that he has been chasing both Leonora. Don Carlo is chasing Leonora and Don Alvaro as well because he has sworn that he will kill them both himself for having killed his father. He has been telling all this in a tavern. He doesn't know that, in fact, Leonora is in the same tavern as well. She is disguised and she understands that she knows, but she hears it from the voice of her brother himself, that he is chasing her because he wants to kill her with his own hands. In that same act, there is another scene that is very religious because now Leonora has decided, just imagine it in the splendid voice of Renata Tebaldi, she arrives to a monastery because she now has learned that there is no future for her among the rest of all humans, among the rest of all mortals. She wants to retire, she wants to live this life, she wants to live in the monastery for the rest of her life. And so Leonora will be an hermit herself, living this life. There is a very beautiful scene right after the Sonjunta, when she arrives to the monastery. Then there is this final scene of the same act where she joins the male choir because once having learned Il Padre Superiore, once having learned that it is Leonora and understands the reason why she wants to escape from the rest of the world, she accepts her, and so she joins them. And there is a very beautiful scene that starts with a melody that starts with La Vergine degli Angeli, and with the male choir with La Vergine degli Angeli mi copra del suo Dio o l'angelo santo. La Vergine degli Angeli me protegga, me protegga l'angelo di Dio. Of course, you have to picture it. If you remember that I am sharing with you some parts of the of the opera just to try to make a point for you to identify what passage I'm talking about, but you look for it and hear to it in the voice of either Cinca Milanovs, Leila Genscher, or Renata Tebaldi, and you will find that it is absolutely beautiful. Right after that, on the act, what we have had so far is first act having the Leonora's father accidentally shot. Second act, now she's an hermit. She has joined the monastery to escape from the rest of the human life. But now it is time for Don Alvaro to join the stage. And if you are aware, before and also being accompanied by a very sad music, there is this mostly recitativo part that starts with La vita inferno all'infelice, invano morte desio. This life that is so sad for those who are so unhappy, invano morte desio. I have wished to die, but it has been in vain. So he recalls Sibilia, Leonora, o Remembranza. Because this whole opera takes place in Spain, in the area of Sevilla, you will learn soon that it is in fact in Calatrava, but it is Sevilla. Then he recalls Leonora, or Remembranza, those memories, oh, that night that stole all the positive things that I had for me, of course, referring to Leonora. Sarò infelice eternamente, è scritto. The destiny has decided, escrito, that I will be forever or for the rest of my life unhappy. Then he tells the story that in fact he's not just any guy. He's in fact the descendant of a regal estirpe, son of kings in America, l'ultimo del Incas. So if you're familiar with the Incas, if you have heard of Machu Picchu, then you know about this civilization prior to the arrival of the Spanish. So that's the region that he comes from. And so he says that because of all that tragedy, nobody knows that he's son of those kings and that he has lived in poverty and escaping and being unable to tell who he actually is. And Giuseppe Di Stefano handles this whole area with the type of character that a singer needs. He starts singing O tu che in seno agli angeli eternamente pura salisti vela incolume dalla mortalgiatura. O tu che in seno agli angeli salisti vela e pura, non scordar di volger lo sguardo a me tapino, che senza nome de sulle in odio del destin, che senza nome de sulle in odio del destin, chiedo anhelando ai misero, chiedo anhelando ai misero la morte di incontrar. If you want to listen to a powerful voice singing it, look for Corellis or Del Monaco. If you want to sing it, to hear someone singing it from the heart, you have to hear it from Di Stefanos. All those pianissimi that he adds, he follows the notes of Verdi when it says dolce. All those filaturas that Giuseppe Di Stefano does are just perfection for a singer, are a good example of how perfect his understanding of the role was. So it is absolutely believable when at the end of the aria, with almost a broken voice, Di Stefano says, Pietà del mio penar, Leonora mia, pietà del mio penar. partition says morendo. So when you hear a powerful voice, Mia pietà, pietà, it's like if you were listening to, a very different role, like if you were listening to Randot. And it is not the role of the tenor in Turandot. It is somebody that is really suffering, that the suffering is killing him, and you have to hear it in his voice, right? You want to hear it, you have to listen to Stefano doing it. If you know the plot, you already know that right after that there is a duet between the tenor, Alvaro and Don Carlo. They happen to have met, and there is this duet of friendship that once again Di Stefano sings it so out of this world. Believable in every syllable, believable in every note. You believe in his voice that he's actually dying. If you know the plot, he has been hurt, so he will soon be taken by the doctors, because he may die as a result of the last battle. So he joins in this duet with Don Carlo, and at this point you can really feel that the two of them had become friends, not knowing each other, that they were in fact the antagonists. Don Alvaro didn't know it was Don Carlo, and vice versa, not knowing their pasts, and given the straits of destiny, they had become friends. So right after that battle, one really believes when Don Carlos says to Alvaro, Amico, fidate, fidate nel cielo, fidate nel cielo. My friend, please, my friend, keep your trust in heaven, because heaven will save you. While Don Alvaro says, Ormoio tranquillo vi stringo al cor mio, Ormoio tranquillo vi stringo al cor mio, addio, addio. You know that I like to insist. Please go to a recording of Di Stefano and go and listen to this duet. It really is extraordinary. And you know that right after that there comes the scene for the baritone, because now the baritone is having doubts. At some point in the last duet, he mentioned the name of Calatrava, di Calatrava il nome. So he has realized that Don Alvaro, remember that they haven't shared their real names, he noticed the perturbation in Don Alvaro when he heard Calatrava. He has also noticed that Don Alvaro has or is not like a Spanish, does not have the appearance of a Spanish. So he says, he looks like that man that I have been chasing, the lover of Leonora. What would happen if it turned out to be him? And you know that there is this hesitation at the beginning. He says, Morir tremenda cosa, si intrepido, si prode, e por morra. After that initial hesitation where he says, should I violate the promise that I gave to him because Don Alvaro has given him a key where he keeps, that opens all the secrets that he has already kept for himself. He in fact says that the secrets are there. So Don Carlo is hesitating whether he should use that key. So he says, questa chiave il dica, because I was telling you, he's hesitating. Qual lampo se fosse il seduttore, adesso in mia mano e vive. Se mi ingannasse, questa chiave il dica. Ecco i folli che tento, e la fe che giurai, e questa vita che devo al suo valor. Anch'io lo salvo. Because if you have seen the opera, you know already that they became friends because Álvaro had saved Don Carlo in the past. So Don Carlo, that's why Don Carlo says, I owe my life to him. He saved my life. I owe him my own life. So am I going to betray him by opening his secret? But now I have saved him as well. I have paid him for that favor. So if he's that damn Indian che macchiò il sangue mio, chiunque mi vede. No, ven mi veggio. Because he's deciding that since the favor has been paid, now he has the right to open what he calls the urna fatale. Starts that very famous aria by the baritone, urna fatale del mio destino, vata lontana mittenti invano, l'onora terger qui vene insano, l'ononta nuova nol macchierò. Un giuro e sacro per l'uom d'onore, que foli servino il lor mistero, disperso vada il mal pensiero, disperso vada il mal pensiero. He wants that horrible thought to leave his mind. He would not be daring to open that urna fatale. But, he says, what if I don't open that coffret? What else? And I read the letters. What else can I do? So he says, vediam, qui va un ritratto. Sugel non ve, nulla ne dissi, nulla promisse, sapra dunque. Okay, and I have found here a picture. Sugel non ve, nulla ne dissi, nulla promessi. So, twisting somehow what he has promised, because he has promised not to read those letters, not to risvegliare questo segreto, but now he says there is a photo, there is a picture. I never promised not to watch a picture, which is twisting his own promise, but he's so tempted of learning whether it is in fact that Indo maledetto, that Indian, and when he opens it, he finds out that it is in fact the photo of Leonora. So he says, Don Alfaro il ferito, oriele viva ede mia man poi muoia. So Don Alvaro is the one who has been hurt. Hope he lives, because of my own hand he shall perish. Then enters a doctor and says, Lieta novella è salvo. I have brought good news, he's saved. Don Alvaro was saved. So Don Carlos says, è salvo, oh gioia! And then starts this cavatina that is very difficult. You must be aware already that singers usually usually not all singers sing either the arias or the caballetas complete. Somehow, because it is very tiring, sometimes they say it is very repetitive, so I want to end the reach of my aria in full strength, so that I can get a very good applause. And so the words of this cavalletta, it is very a splendid piece for a baritone to sing, but the words, and I will refer to this later, the words of Don Carlo are always so full of hate, so full of anger, and so he sings, O gioia immensa che mi non del cor ti sento. But even though he says, I'm happy, he's not happy because Alvaro is safe. He's happy because he will be able to kill Don Alvaro with his own hands. That's what he is really happy about. So we have to understand that's where his happiness comes from. And also because he says, Leonora oveta scondi di seguisti fra le squadre, chi del sangue di tuo padre, chi del sangue di tuo padre, ti fa il volto rosseggiare. So Don Carlo is very happy because he will be able to pursue, to complete his vengeance. How? Well, with an extraordinary cavalletta for the baritone. Ah, infelice pensarei se potessi il brado mio amendo ed aver Dio d'un son colpo consacrar e gli salvo gioia immensa che me non i torti sento Leonora me t'ascondi gli seguisti tra le squadre chi del sangue di tuo padre ti fa il volto rosseggiar. This is in fact the part that is usually cut, and also the ending thing. It is a little bit changed because it goes like Va consacrar. You know that it is much easier when you make a pause, so you will notice that baritones usually do a change something there and say Va then make a pause and then wrap up with the final note at sacrar. Of course, it depends on the baritone that sings it, but most of them change the ending so that it fits and it makes it more spectacular. As we have said it in the past, it is fan service again. Right after that, and I would like to just make a couple of comments about another character that I haven't talked about, that it is called Preciosilla, that it's a gypsy and that it's some sort of a relief throughout the two times that she appears on scene, but she doesn't really add anything to the plot. Prior or after this scene where Carlo will be able to kill Alvaro himself, there is a scene where Preciosilla sings the Rataplan, 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 la 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 la. And well, it is a nice number. It is very attractive, but we are skipping it because, as I was telling you, it really doesn't add anything to the plot. And now we're back. We're back to remember that Don Alvaro was saved by the doctors, and now Don Carlo has waited for him to recover. Carlo has been patient so that Alvaro is recovered and now can face a duel with him. But so far, Alvaro doesn't know that the secret was violated. So this scene starts with Alvaro saying, Ne gustare m'è dato un'ora di quiete, affrante l'alma dalla lotta crudel. So being this far from the battles, it's very good for the soul of a human. Pace d'oblio e indarno, io chiedo al cielo indarno. Don Carlo arrives and says, Capitano. Alvaro answers, Chi mi chiama? Voi che si larghe cure mi prodigaste? Alvaro asks Carlo, who is calling me? You, the one who took so much care of myself for me to recover? Carlo answers, La ferita vostra sanata è a pieno? Alvaro answers, Sì, forte, qual prima? So terresti un duel. Con chi? Nemici non avete? Tutte me abbiamo, ma a stento comprendo. No, messaggio non inviava Don Alvaro l'indiano? Because after having said, you, the one who took so much care of me for me to recover, Carlo asks, are you strong enough? Yes, as I was before. So, would you face a duel? But with whom? Asks Alvaro. Nemici non avete? Asks Carlo. You don't have any enemies? We all have enemies, answers Alvaro. Ma a stento comprendo. Suddenly, he's understanding that Don Carlo is about to tell him that he knows who he is. messaggio non inviava Don Alvaro l'indiano, doesn't it mean anything, Don Alvaro the Indian? And then Alvaro says, tradimento, sleale, il segreto fue dunque violato. Sleale, you broke your promise, the secret was broken. Fui leso quel piego, l'effigie ha parlato. Don Carlo di Vargas tremate, io sono. I didn't break the promise. I didn't read the letters. L'effigie ha parlato, referring to the picture he saw. Don Carlo di Vargas, son io, tremate. I am Don Carlo di Vargas. Di arte minace non mi agitò al suono. Usciamo all'istante une de morire. Now, Don Carlo, very upset, says, usciamo all'istante unde di morire, because now he already wants to kill him. Alvaro answers, la morte disprezzo, ma duol mi inveire contro che per primo amistade mi offria. I'm not afraid of dying, but it hurts me that it comes from the man that offered me his friendship before. No, profanato tal nome, non sia, non profanato tal nome non sia, says Don Carlo. You are profanating the name of friendship. And Alvaro says, no, non fui io, fu il destino che il padre aveva ucciso, non io che sedusi quell'angelo d'amore, ne guardano entrambi del paradiso, chi sono innocente vi dicono al cuore, che io sono innocente vi dicono al coro, sono innocente. Alvaro is saying, I am innocent. I didn't kill your father. It was destiny who chose your father to die. I really didn't seduce your sister. It was love that joined us. But Carlo doesn't want to believe that. So he says, so Alvaro replies, la notte fatale per doppia offerta mortale, guaitone, un aro in traccia ne andai, ahimè che spenta Leonora trovai. I really looked for her for a whole year, and I found that Leonora was dead. And Don Carlo shouts, menzogna, la suora ospitala antica parente. Vi giunsi ma tardi ed ella fuggente. Ei vive grandio, si vive. Because now, after Alvaro said that he has found that Leonora has died, Don Carlos says, no, she is not dead. She is still alive. So he's to surprise. Alvaro says, ed ella vive grandio. Don Carlo, amico, il fremito che ogni mia fibra scuote, vi dica che quest'anima infame ser non puote, vive gran Dio, quell'angelo, vive quel gran angelo, quell'angelo vive gran Dio. He's so happy that he says, oh my God, dear God, she's alive, that angel, she's still alive. But Don Carlo says, ella vive, ma in breve morirà. I am going to kill her soon. No. And that's where they are facing two opposite feelings. Don Alvaro is happy because his beloved Leonora, he has just learned that she's alive. And Don Carlo is still willing to have Leonora killed and kill Alvaro, of course. In this confrontation, Don Carlo, using once again, I was telling you before that Don Carlo, a beautiful role for a baritone, usually has horrible words. The words of Don Carlo in this duet are so full again of hate, of darkness, of anger, that he says, stolto, stolto fra noi, dischiuse s'insanguinato a velo, come chiamar, fratello, chi tu te a me rapì, d'eccelsa e ovile origine, e dopo ch'io vi spegna, e dopo ve l'indegna, che il sangue suo tradì. Don Alvaro says, che dite, e la morrà, because Don Carlos says, she's going to die, e la morrà fame. But Don Alvaro says, voi pria cadrete nel fatale certame, meaning that Don Alvaro will not let Carlo kill Leonora, of course, but Don Carlo insists, morte a Leonora, ov'io non cada e s'anime Leonora giungerò, tinto ancor del vostro sangue questa acciar l'immergerò. With those horrible words talks about how he's going to kill Leonora. So now Alvaro says, morte, sì, col brando mio un sicario ucciderò, referring now to Don Carlo, now no longer his friend, now he's referring to Don Carlo as a sicario. Col brando mio, with my own sword, I will kill this sicario. Un pensier volgete a Dio, l'ora vostra al fin suonò. Dedicate or send that last thought to heaven, because your time to die has arrived. That's what Alvaro now says to Don Carlo in response to Don Carlo's intention of killing Leonora. Tinto ancor del vostro sangue questa acciar l'immergerò, sì, tinto ancor del vostro sangue queste acciar l'immergerò. And he says, andiamo a morte, andiamo a morte. So they start the duel, and Alvaro hurts Carlo. He says, it can be. Or che mi resta, pietoso Dio, tu ispirà, illumina il mio pensier, al chiostro all'eremo, ai santi altari l'oblio, la pace chiega il guerrier. Knows that he has killed now the brother of Leonora, so he wants to find peace, and the curtain falls as he promises to also retrieve to a different life, praying to God. That's how this act ends. But in the following act, Carlo has recovered, Carlo didn't die, and starts this scene he has found where Don Alvaro is now that he is in a church, in a monastery as well. He finds him and says, invano Alvaro ti celasti al mondo ed ipocrita veste scudo facesti alla villa. Alvaro, it was in vain that you tried to escape from the world, because I have found you. And again, also making reference to the life of Leonora, to a vain honor that he dishonors Alvaro, and so there is a second confrontation again with in a duel. Again, this duel is very strong. It's emotionally very strong. And I am insisting again, if you want to hear it in the voice of Giuseppe Di Stefano, it's absolutely believable that he is upset and that he will be killing Don Carlo for wishing to kill Leonora. This duel so strong, so powerful, with so many high notes, has several moments because uh, Alvaro still recalls Leonora and says, l'amo ancora, e se la mamma più non brama questo cor. But still in the voice of hate of Don Carlo in this second duel, says, Desso splende più alla macchia del tuo stemma or provasti conquestato, desso splende più che gemma, sangue tinge di mulatto, per la gola voi mentite, a me, umbrando, uscite, umbrando, uscite, and in triumph, because he already, now that Alvaro is a priest, because remember that he retired to a monastery, he has already made him being so upset that he wants to jump into the duel. So Don Carlo, very happy, says, Finalmente! And then, comes this melody from La Forza. And Alvaro says, no, l'inferno non trionfi, va, riparti. Finally, he accepts the duel, and so the two of them leave stage shouting, Morte, morte, vieni, e morte, a morte andiamo. After that second confrontation, we go back to a different scene, and there comes Leonora. Remember that she was an hermit already, with no contact with anybody, and as the act continues, this scene continues, she sings one of the most well-known arias for a spinto soprano, that is the Pace, pace mio Dio, pace, pace, pace mio Dio, pace mio Dio, and she says, Cruda sventura me stringe ai miei languir, come il di primo, da tant'anni d'ora, profondo è il mio soffrir. Pace, pace mio Dio, pace mio Dio. So she tells the story of her life and her love. La mai liever ma di beltà e valore cotanto Dio l'ornò, che l'amo ancor ne togliermi del core la immagine sua saprò. I have not been able to vanish the memory of himself in my heart. Fatalità, un delitto disgiunti in acqua giù. Alvaro io t'amo, e su nel cielo è scritto non ti vedrò mai più. At this point in time, she says, I will die and I will never see Alvaro again. By the end of the aria, she says, misero pane a prolungarmi viene, la sconsolata vita, ma chi giunge, chi profanare ardisce il sacro loco, maledizione, 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 maledizione. Being there, an hermit, nobody was allowed to approach there. As she sees the breath, she says, misero pane a prolungarmi viene, la sconsolata vita. This misero pane, this breath, does not let me die. It only helps me being alive. But for what? For a life full of misery. Then it is interrupted because she says, ma chi giunge, chi profanare ardesce il sacro loco. Maledizione, 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 maledizione. after that long note by the soprano, then it is a very spectacular wrap for the aria, and then comes a very horrible scene. It is horrible because it starts with the voice of Don Carlos saying, Io voglio confessione, l'alma salvate, because he's asking for someone to get him the last confession, because he knows he's going to die. Alvaro was victorious again. Alvaro has defeated Don Carlo again, and he says, Ancora la sangue di un Vargas maledetto io sono, ma qui presso un'ermita. So he says, how can I take the life of another Vargas? So he goes to the hermit and he asks for help. A confortar correte un uomo che muor. And Leonora, still not knowing that it is Leonora inside the hermit, says, Non posso, fratello, in nome del Signor. And Leonora answers again, Non posso, e dopo, and with a very dark, tenebrous music, Aiuto, aiuto, temerai del ciel, is the response of Leonora. But right after that, when she says, Lira fuggite, because Don Alvaro, looking for help for Don Carlo, has violated that sacred place, the hermit where Leonora lived, and says, Una donna qual voce hanno uno spettro che miro tu, Leonora, egli vien desso, io ti rivelo ancora. There is this happy and happy, because they are happy to discover that the two of them are alive. Leonora has suffered so much thinking that Alvaro had died, and Alvaro had thought for many years that she had died, until Carlo revealed that she was still alive, but he thought he would never see her again. So they are reuniting, but they are reuniting in the most horrible of moments. What is that horrible moment? Because in the confrontation, in the duel, Alvaro has hurt Don Carlo, and so Don Carlo is dying. So Leonora runs to see her brother, but only to discover that he fulfills his vengeance. Before he dies, he kills Leonora. So we hear the shout of Leonora, having been hurt with the sword of her own brother, so she's going to die. Maledizione, maledizione, says Alvaro. Il padre guardiano approaches and says, to wrap up the opera, says, Quest'angelo vola al trono del Signor, prostrati, prostrati. That angel that was Leonora is already ascending to heaven to join God. So on your knees, on your knees, and pray. This is how this opera finishes. As you may see, the last act, the last scene is very, very tough, because at the end, Alvaro had only the happiness of learning that Leonora was alive, but it really didn't last but a few minutes, because now he will see Leonora die in his arms. This tremendous plot, which is it has gone way too far for many people. This has gone way too far. Not believable. Not the best libretto. For some people, can't believe that Verdi decided to actually write an opera on it. Everybody has the right to have his own opinion, so I'm having mine. This is one of my favorite operas, because the tenor really, really has a very solid role in this opera, the baritone is extraordinary as well. And when you have artists as the size of Tebaldi, Gencher, Corelli, Del Monaco, my favorite, Di Stefano in this role, Leonard Warren, of course, Ettore Bastianini. When you have so many great singers singing it, one cannot do anything but to love an opera that is so spectacular. Pippo, Giuseppe Di Stefano, the tenor who best understood the nuances, the pianissimi, and the intentions of the role, with lots of love to Giuseppe Di Stefano, who gave lots of love to my country, Mexico, and Mexico in return loved people, loved Giuseppe Di Stefano for the artist he was. Thank you very much. I hope that you will be joining me on another program. Bye bye.